Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Indian Nation Station pregame show right here on the Indian Nation Station. I'm your host, AJ Ganger. With me, as always, is the man, Brian Gillespie. Brian, tonight, the most played rivalry in the state of Ohio kicks off for the 140th time as Troy comes into town to take on Piqua for the battle on the Miami. This is an exciting one.
Yeah, definitely a lot on the line tonight. You know, you think, well, both of these teams are only 2-3, but 2-3 can be misleading sometimes, and this year is one of those times. Both these teams are a lot better than the record. They've both played an incredibly difficult schedule up till now.
Yeah.
So tonight should be a huge game for both as they search out that postseason spot. They're both on the edge in Region 8, and they can make hay in that way tonight.
Well, speaking of the remaining schedule, Piqua is kind of on the back half of their schedule where they have a couple tough games, but the rest of them are very winnable. I mean, close to 5-5, 6-4 kind of territory. They play Troy here tonight. Next weekend's homecoming as they take on West Carrollton. Then they travel to Xenia October 11th, senior night against Sydney on the 18th, and then they close the year out at Fairborn on the 25th. Again, don't forget that all of our games are to be streamed on a tape delay on the Indian Nation Station Channel 5 and our YouTube page. They'll all be available at the conclusion of those games. And we are only doing home games and playoff games that we can get into for our Indians. Brian, what do you think of this remaining schedule for the Indians here tonight?
Well, you've got, Troy, of course, is a huge game, and then you've got West Carrollton, very winnable. Sydney, very winnable, but also probably a tight game.
Yeah.
At Fairborn, very winnable. at Xenia on the 11th in a couple weeks. That's going to be tough. Xenia has been playing really good football. Probably, they're coming off a big win against Butler, which was relatively surprising. That was one of those coin flip, top of the league type games, and Xenia came out on top. So that there are some winnable games, and I figure if they win all their winnable games, they're gonna get themselves a playoff position. And if you get a win over Troy this Friday, that puts you in a really good spot to move up a little bit, get you a more reasonable matchup come playoff time.
Yes, yeah, it does. Let's go ahead and take a look at our 24-25 sponsors for our Indian Nation Station this year. Lemon Meringue Floral Boutique, Bits and Pieces, This and That Candy on Main, Dick Lumpkins Auto Body, Edison State Community College, Robert Brothers Comfort, Dr. Littlejohn, Little Caesars Pizza, Buffalo Wings and Rings, Atlanta Sportswear, Craig's Corporation, the Kathy Henney Team, and Harmony Systems. Thank you for supporting Piqua Athletics and the Indian Nation Station. Scores from around the Miami Valley League last week. We had some great games, a couple matchups of undefeateds coming down to the wire. Stebbins beat Fairborn 33-20. Tip City with that last second touchdown to beat Troy 25-22. Xenia, same thing, scored late in that game to beat Butler 25-17. Sydney 58, West Carrollton 14, and then obviously Piqua 49 and Greenville 0. Brian, I know you were in Oklahoma. How much of football did you actually get to watch? Right?
Well, I actually was able to watch a little bit of the Greenville-Piqua game. As much as I could while I was there, but I did follow a lot of it on Twitter, and I was amazed at how close Tip and Troy was, really back and forth. Mm-hmm. Troy had it in their grasp and then just came up short at the end there, last second or final minute touchdown there for Tip on a 3rd and 24 of all plays.
Wow.
They get a 26-yard touchdown. That's a backbreaker. That's you have to see where Troy's mind's at after that loss, because they could see that grasp. They could see maybe a league title in their, even though it's early, that would have been a huge win towards maybe getting themselves a piece or the title itself down the road. So losing that game, now you have to circle the wagons a little bit and come back here this week against Piqua.
And then Xenia, obviously, the 8-point victory over Butler 25-17. That's a huge win for Xenia. Butler's playing some good football, though.
Yeah, Butler likes to play those back and forth defensive games. They have done enough offensively this year. They've gotten better on that end, but they're still a defensive-minded team. Xenia, they've got some great offensive players, and they're managing to do just enough right now. I'll be honest, they're one of the surprise teams this year. I thought Xenia would be solid.
Yeah.
I didn't know how good they would be, and they've been outstanding. and they're really in a good position in the other division for now.
They're a well-coached football team too. I mean, their coach has been there for a few years now, the same coach, and they've been doing great things over there at Xenia these last few years.
Yeah, they have. It's consistency. They've got to the point where they're a consistent competitor, and they're in the mix every year. This year, more so than they might take that. They might take the overall title this year if they keep on their way.
Yeah, I agree 100% there. Let's go ahead and take a look at our stats from our Greenville game. Again, Piqua beating Greenville 45-0. Caden Thomas was almost perfect on Friday night. 14 of 19, 230 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns. Jericho Burns, 18 carries, 169 yards with 3 touchdowns. Keaton Bolden, 19-yard touchdown. Joey Voskel, 35-yard touchdown, which happened right after Tom Michael said, I haven't seen Joey Voskel all night. And then Rayshawn Garrett with the 63-yard touchdown. Owen Schaller, 8 total tackles on defense, including a sack. 436 total yards to 126. There's not really much you can say about this besides Piqua came out and did what they were supposed to do.
Yeah, definitely. They grabbed control early and then they cruised to victory. That Greenville team is in a process of rebuild. It seems like a yearly process for them. Hopefully with a young coach, they'll be able to keep that young coach along the way and over a 3-4 year process, maybe be able to get back to a Midland team there. I will say one thing that stuck out to me when I look at the stats is the balance.
Very balanced.
All balanced offensively for Piqua. They have been trending up in the passing game. From early in the year was a little bit of a rough go.
Yeah.
Weren't successful. They were having to run the ball all the time. I think with Caden Thomas in the group on offense and in the passing game has been able to trend upwards, and that makes it difficult for teams who want to run blitzes and things like that because there's that threat of hitting a deep pass. And those numbers, Caden Thomas' efficiency has gone up each week. And that should put some thought into Troy's defensive coordinator's mind. Hey, we got to play both. We can't just sit on the run all day long.
Yeah, and Caden Thomas has also been throwing the ball with a lot more confidence than what he did last season and then seasons before. He just seemed like he was in a rhythm. And like you said, the balance was crazy to see because normally we're used to Piqua running the ball for 200-300 yards a game and maybe have 100 yards passing. That's it. For them to have that well of a balance was great. And they did some amazing things on Friday night.
Indeed.
Let's go ahead and move on here to our Week 6 Miami Valley League games. We have Butler traveling to Tip City. That's going to be a good game. Stebbins goes to West Carrollton. Sydney at Greenville. Fairborn at Xenia. And obviously our game here tonight with Troy and Piqua. Brian, Butler, Tip City. That looks like a great game.
Yeah, Tip's a really good team at home, and they're a good team either way. And Butler will play really good defense, as I mentioned earlier. So Butler will keep themselves in that game. Do they have enough offense to beat Tip? I don't know about that, but I think it should be a relatively low-scoring, tough, tight game.
And looking back here on the other 3 games besides ours, it seems like all 3 of them, you're going to have a Stebbins winner, a Sydney winner, and probably a Xenia winner in those. Yeah,
on any given week, some weeks are better than others. This week, you have quite a few blowouts in line, unfortunately. But, in this league, you do have, if you can get 2 really good matchups in one week, you're in good situation. And this week, we've got 2 really good matchups.
We really do. As we move on here tonight for the 140th time, Piqua will take on Troy on the football field. Troy leads the all-time series 67-66-6. Piqua can even the score back up tonight with a huge win as Troy's coming off an emotional loss to Tip City last week, while Piqua steamrolled Greenville. Both teams are 2-3, Brian. This is the most played rivalry in the state of Ohio. It's always exciting. What can you tell us?
Well, I can tell you, I don't know. I was not around in 1899 when this rivalry started.
I hope you weren't around.
Well, some people might think I was around.
You look good for being around that long, though.
Thank you. I get some of those old man jokes these days, but William McKinley, Ohio's William McKinley was actually the president back then. So it's been going on over a century.
Wow.
You don't see too many rivalries that are lasting that long.
No.
And they haven't just played on a yearly basis. It's 139 matchups over 125 years. So you've got the first matchup, they had just cleared voting machines to be legal,
Yep.
which is hard to believe. that they've been playing for that long, and it just adds every bit of this rivalry. You know, you've got all kinds of angles to go out with this rivalry. These teams just don't like each other, 10 miles away from each other. The competitiveness, it's, you know, how is it possible that Troy only leads it by 1 game over all those 125 matchups, or the 139 matchups? It's a 1 game difference in this, you know. But what's interesting is it kind of follows, you know, there's a ebb and flow to it. You get a lot of 3-game win streaks, 5-game win streaks, 3-game win streaks. So there's not a lot of back and forth. Pick would like to make some back and forth here and get back for that 14-0 win last year, because Troy got that one, but Pickwood was in that game for a large portion of that game until late in the game.
Yeah. And
it just some couple turnovers cost him there. But this is going to be an emotional night, big night for both teams, because again, as we talked about, you know, Pick was sitting at 15 or 14 in the ratings for the playoffs. Meanwhile, Troy's out of the mix right now, tied in 18th. So, you know, they're probably both going to get in eventually.
Their schedules are pretty tough, and those teams are going to continue to win that have beaten them.
Yes, but at the end of the day, this game could really shoot somebody up the standings with a victory.
How do you feel about them playing this game in the middle of the season as opposed to the end like it used to be?
Well, you know, it's either front end or back end. I feel like that's the better spot for a rivalry game. I think mixed in the middle kind of gets it lost in the translation. You know, kind of gets lost in the mix a little bit. You'll never forget about it, but you want to have. There's a lot on the line this Friday, tonight, but you want to have everything on the line. And if you put it at the end of the season, you know the cards are on the table. It's win or lose. This is where you're going. This is where you're staying home for the year. If they could do that with the schedule, that'd be great. NBL did some weird things with the schedule this year. It's totally mixed up.
It's totally mixed up.
You know, everything changed, but I guess that's 2024. Everything changes, so we have to roll with the punches. Either way, this game will play a big role in getting these teams on their trajectory for the second half of the season.
And you know, this all started because of the courthouse battle. Piqua and Troy were both trying to get the courthouse to come to their city. Piqua believed they should have it because their population was more. Troy believes they should have it because they're more centrally located, and Troy ended up getting it. So Troy has the courthouse, and ever since then, it seems like we've been playing this game for 140 years.
Back and forth we go. You know, I mean, that's an important thing, being the county seat, as my friend Nate Wright told me. He gave me a little bit of a history lesson from Piqua, and that was a big deal for Troy to get, and it's made a big deal in their city and over a long period of time, and Piqua's always got a chip on their shoulder looking for some payback.
Piqua's always got a chip on their shoulder. It doesn't matter what it is. They're going to come in and have that. Brian, what is Piqua going to have to do tonight to end up winning this game? We know Troy's a very run-heavy, wing tee, kind of shotgun style offense. Our defense has been playing pretty well recently, but what are we looking at as opposed to like the keys?
I think you just have to bow up, and you have to, you know, you got to keep them out of the end zone as much as possible. They're going to get their yards. You got to, when they get in the red zone or when they get opportunities, your defense has to hold up, you know, bow up and be strong and keep them out of the end zone. Force them to try to kick field goals. They do have a good kicker, but 3's better than 7.
Yeah.
And on the other end of that, Piqua needs to be balanced. As we mentioned earlier, if you can do both, pass and run efficiently, that's going to put a lot of pressure on Troy's defense to get stops.
Travis Neese has definitely been in the film room working, getting his offense ready to go, and I think Piqua will be ready to go. You know, one of the things talking to the kids this week, we go around this week to the road rallies, and we always, you know, do that with all the other kids. We normally have trophies to bring with us, Brian. This year we don't have the Battle of the Miami trophy, and these kids desperately want to get that back.
Yeah, those trophies. I mean, you get one for the Great American Rivalry Series and the Battle on the Miami. So I mean, there's a lot of trophies on the line, and you love to take those back and put those in the trophy case for the year and then show them off. And Piqua would love to get back in that win column tonight.
Definitely. I'd love to definitely see them get back in the win column as well. Brian, anything else before we get off of here?
No, it's been a pleasure. 2 weeks in a row. We're going for a three-week run next week. You know, a 3-game homestand. You don't get too many of those.
No, you don't. Also, check out this dude's article on the Battle on the Miami. on his Facebook page. Also, we're going to send that link out as well. It's a very great article, very well written here by our very own Brian Gillespie.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for watching this edition of the Pregame Show right here on the Indian Nation station. Stay tuned for the 140th meeting between Piqua and Troy coming up next right here on the Indian Nation station as Tom Michaels and the man Brian Gillespie will have the call. Until next time, he's Brian and I'm AJ Ganger saying go Piqua and beat Troy.